Hi ladies, welcome back to my channel. I am so happy to have you back today. We are going to discuss cognitive dissonance. Now you might ask, what is that? It sounds like one big word salad, but it's something that is very, very common in toxic abusive relationships, and also something that you experience during the breakup after those types of relationships. The definition of cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort that you feel when you are holding two values, two different beliefs, or two different types of attitudes. Now, what does that look like in an abusive relationship? This is where you experience a clash between your beliefs, which could be, I believe that I should be treated with respect, and the reality of your partner's behavior. Now, in toxic abusive relationships, that is something that happens a lot. You end up experiencing this tug of war in your head. And what it can look like is one minute you're thinking like, oh, they're a monster, they abused, they manipulated me. And then the next minute you start thinking, well, they're really not the worst person in the world. Or, yeah, they probably just had a hard day at work and that's why they blew up on me. Another thought that is definitely prominent in abusive relationships that aren't physical or haven't gotten physical yet is, yes, he did verbally and mentally attack me, but he's never laid a hand on me, which is just insane to think about it when you say it out loud. He's treated you really badly. He's disrespected you. He's treated you poorly. And just because he hasn't put a hand on you, that makes it okay, that excuses his behavior. Just because certain behavior hasn't reached an extremity, it doesn't negate the fact that behavior is mistreatment, it's disrespectful, it's wrong. That's something I really want to stress, because like a lot of times, and I've been guilty of this too, when you are experiencing cognitive dissonance, you end up trying to rationalize and excuse certain behavior to make it match what you believe is right. I've seen it in my clients. I've seen it as they've been going through the relationship. They would say certain things like, oh, well, he's just really stressed out. His work really demands a lot out of him. He can definitely blow a short fuse at any second. Or I've definitely heard the one where, well, yeah, yes, he does say mean things to me. Things aren't that great and we argue all the time, but he's never laid a hand on me. And it's like, it's almost like you're trying to justify their bad behavior by coming up with these excuses in your mind to make you feel better for staying in or being in a relationship like that to begin with. But what this does is cognitive dissonance. It's just, you are just tormenting your mind by going back and forth, because your intuition, your soul knows that it's not right, and your mind is trying to make sense of it all. And that is what is happening. Your mind is trying to make it all make sense, right? But your soul is like, no, this isn't right. You don't deserve to be treated this way. You don't deserve to be mentally, emotionally, or physically abused. There's no excuse for that. So I had done this leadership program that I ended up volunteering for after I was done. And a quick little story just to help you understand, because this was an aha moment for me. And this was way after I healed from my breakup. Felt like I was in a pretty great mental and emotional state to begin with. And plus, like, after coming out of a program like that, I really felt empowered. I felt confident. I felt worthy. I was volunteering and I was a greeter. I was the one that had to tell all the students that were coming in for the workshop to put their phones and bags to the side and to have a seat. And there was the last student coming in. He was late. He probably had like less than a minute to spare. As he was rushing in, I let him know. I was like, hey, just make sure you put your phone and any of your belongings to the side in little cubbies. And as he's walking in, he's like, yeah, I know, I always do. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. He gave me a little attitude. I was like, all right. So after that, I was like, okay, like, why? I was trying to figure out why he was giving me that attitude. I was making up all these scenarios in my head, like, oh, maybe as a child, I don't know, he went through something and he feels like he has to defend himself. And I don't know what happened to him before he came here. Maybe he almost got into an accident and he's like stressed out, or maybe he's just like used to talking down to people. I don't know, right? So I was coming up with all these different scenarios in my head. And I was making up excuses for his behavior in my own head to make myself feel better. Then during one of our breaks, we would always, all the volunteer coaches would have a meeting with the trainer while the students were on break. And the trainer would ask us, like, oh, so what's a takeaway? What's something that you learned today? Did anything come up for you? So I end up telling him that my experience, and I tell him, like, oh, yeah, I was able to, just realize, like, oh, maybe he went through something. Maybe he's like this because of what he went through. And I felt better. And the trainer looks at me, and this is a man who is in his 70s, and he's done hundreds and hundreds of these types of trainings, and he's coached hundreds of people. And he looks at me dead in the face, and he's like, Etienne, it's great that you can come up with all these reasons as to why he treated you the way he treated you, but just know that just because you understand why somebody is the way they are, it never makes it okay for them to treat you badly. And I was like, what? I mean, a light bulb went off in my head when he said that. And I was like, and it just clicked. He's right. It's great that we can find compassion for people, that we can be able to understand where they came from, or understand their pain, or empathize with them. But just know that just because we are able to do that, that never excuses people from treating you poorly, or disrespecting you, or abusing you, or mistreating you. This doesn't give you a green light to be combative, or to yell back, or to give them a taste of their own medicine. That is not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that you are allowed to stand for yourself and either remove yourself from a situation, or tell somebody, hey, don't speak to me that way, in a respectful way, in a calm, cool, collective way. That's how you stand for yourself. When you don't give in to somebody else's behavior, and either you remove yourself from the situation, or you let that person know, like, if you speak to me that way one more time, I'm leaving. Point blank. And it's not an ultimatum. It's not a threat. It's just you standing for yourself. And I believe that there are ways to be able to do that without it being combative, without lashing out at the person, without losing your cool. You are able to remove yourself from the situation. Just because we understand why our partner is the way they are, whether they were abused, whether they were neglected, whether this and that, it never excuses them mistreating you, whether it's mentally, physically, or emotionally. It never excuses that behavior, ever, ever, ever. And if they keep doing it, it's up to you to remove yourself from that situation, to take yourself out. The effects that cognitive dissonance can have on you during the relationship while you're still in it, there's quite a few actually. Number one is that you rationalize harmful behavior. And this is what I just had spoken about, is where we make excuses for their behavior, especially if it's harmful behavior, whether it's emotionally, mentally, or physically harmful to you. We rationalize their behavior. This is where you justify or minimize their abusive behavior in order to reduce the discomfort of recognizing the abuse to begin with. And it's all a mental game. Like I said before, your soul knows that this isn't right. Your intuition is trying to let you know, like, hey, this isn't right, this isn't okay. But your mind is trying to make sense of it all. So that's what is happening. Your mind is trying to be like, okay, well, but maybe he had a bad day today, or maybe this is because he was abused when he was young. That's the main thing about cognitive dissonance, is that it conflicts. Like your values, your beliefs, and your attitudes are conflicting with what's actually happening in your partner's behavior towards you. You will even blame yourself. You'll be like, you know what? Yeah, like, I deserve that criticism. It's my fault that happened. It's my fault that argument happened. I should have never brought up that subject. I should have just gotten over it. Number two is self-doubt and confusion. A lot of times abusive partners will gaslight their victims. And what gaslighting does is that it intensifies the cognitive dissonance even more, because when they gaslight you, you start to question your perceptions and your own reality. This leads to confusion, self-blame, and loss of trust in your own judgment. Number three, it makes it really difficult to leave the relationship. The mental tug-of-war that you experience from cognitive dissonance, it leaves you feeling paralyzed and stuck. Like, you end up feeling like you don't have a choice. But I want to let you know that that is not true, because you do. During cognitive dissonance, the abuser takes advantage of this confusion to maintain control and make it harder for you to leave. And this makes you want to try one last time every single time. It's crazy how our mind will think and behave when we are in fight or flight mode, or when we're constantly under a lot of stress and we have to walk on eggshells. Now, during cognitive dissonance, what will happen is you will think, okay, well, this is my fault. And by you taking ownership of what happened, of you being like, well, this is all my fault, then you think or believe that if you change the way you behave, you can make things better again, that they will become loving to you like they were in the beginning of the relationship. And it's just a very toxic cycle, because you think by believing that something was your fault, it gives you a false sense of control. And the reason why is because you think that, okay, well, if that was my fault, then I can control the behavior because it was my fault, and I just have to change myself. I just have to change the way I act, or the way I am, or the way or how I say things, and then they can be loving to me like they were in the beginning of the relationship. I just want to tell you that you are chasing a dangling carrot that you're never going to get, because whoever they showed you in the beginning of the relationship, that wasn't them. That was just a version that they showed you to get you hooked, to make you fall in love with them, to make you believe like, oh yes, like they want to spend the rest of their lives with you, that you are their soulmate, that you are the person they want to marry. But the reality is, like, that person that you fell in love with in the beginning of the relationship, that you became infatuated with, never existed. Never. It was just a lie to get you hooked. So you are essentially chasing a dangling carrot that you will never get, ever. And it's just a piece of a carrot. It's not even like the whole carrot, to be quite honest with you. And it's a vicious cycle that we are in when we are in a toxic, abusive relationship and we are experiencing cognitive dissonance. Something I read in a book, the author is Susan, oh my gosh, I forgot her last name. But she said that a relationship is only as healthy as the weakest partner. And when I look back at all my relationships, I was like, wow, that is so accurate. She's right. Your relationship is only ever going to be as healthy as the weakest partner, or the most traumatized partner. And I'm not saying weak in sense of you're the weak one. No. I'm talking about the person that's abusive, the person that's toxic. That's what I'm talking about. So you could do all the work, you can change, you can do a complete 180. But if that other person doesn't take the initiative to start working on themselves and actually change things, that relationship is going nowhere. And I'm not saying weak by, oh, you cry, you're emotional. No. I'm talking about the person that is the most toxic, the person that needs to do the most work, the person that really needs to take time to themselves and like work on themselves. That's how I viewed that quote. Number 4 is the erosion of self-concept. Over time, this constant struggle can wear down on your self-esteem and make you lose sight of who you really are. And this is because you're trying to make your values match your reality, and they never will. Like, it's so crazy when your reality and your values don't match. There's always going to be a constant struggle, and it trickles down into so many different aspects of your life. It affects your self-worth, it affects how you look at yourself, it affects your confidence, it affects your reality, it affects your mental and emotional health. It affects so many things when your reality doesn't match your values. And number 5 is avoidance of conflict and unresolved issues. To escape discomfort, individuals might downplay problems or convince themselves that the issues are insignificant, leading to unresolved tension, resentment, and a breakdown of trust and intimacy. This is definitely an effect of cognitive dissonance. It kind of goes back to number 1, where you're rationalizing bad behavior. You start to avoid conflict. Things that bother you, that you want to bring up, that you want to talk about, you end up not doing it because you're like, you don't want to start an argument, you don't want to start World War III. You just realize that no, it's not worth bringing up in order to keep the peace. And what ends up happening when you don't bring up things that bother you, you start building resentment, not only towards the other person, but towards yourself. You start not trusting yourself to be able to handle situations that arise. When you don't speak up, when you don't let somebody know, like, hey, that bothers me. That's just an outcome from cognitive dissonance. When you stay in a situation where your values don't match your reality and you are constantly silencing your voice, and not standing for yourself. And like I said before, this doesn't mean to go tit for tat. This doesn't mean to give them a taste of their own medicine. This doesn't mean that you have to come out guns blazing, being like, don't mess with me. This is what's going to happen if you don't, if you don't stop. No, this is about you standing for yourself and letting somebody know, if you speak to me that way one more time, I'm gone, and meaning it and not coming back. Somebody, that's how you combat those feelings of resentment and anger. Feeling angry with yourself for not standing up for yourself, that's how that will go away. When you start setting boundaries, you're not letting your emotions drive the car, you are in control. So now we move on to after the breakup. Now, cognitive dissonance can definitely occur after you have broken up, after you have left that toxic relationship. That's why it's so important to keep no contact. Because during this time of healing, when cognitive dissonance is at its peak high, this is what it will look like. 1 minute, you'll read something or you'll educate yourself about the type of abuse that you experience or the type of person that you were with. You're feeling validated. You're like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this book or this article or this page is describing the exact things that I went through. Then like a little bit of time goes by and then all of a sudden you start remembering things and you're like, well, maybe it was my fault. Maybe he didn't overreact. Maybe he reacted because I overreacted. Maybe things would have been different if I didn't say that or if I didn't bring up that topic. Maybe we wouldn't have argued that much. And maybe if I just changed this one little thing about me, or if I changed my whole self, things would have been different. That's what it looks like after you've broken up. Your brain is trying to make sense of what happened, and it can take you back to those addictive memories of the relationship. And during this time, all it takes for your ex to get you back during this very vulnerable time in your healing is just by sending one text. They can just say one word. It can just be hi. And then you're hooked. That's why I highly, highly stress to stay no contact. If they reach out to you, you delete, you block whatever number they reached out to you if you already blocked them on their own personal number. If you were able to break free and you were able to get away and break up with this person, whether they broke up with you or you broke up with them, it doesn't matter, but you are free. Take advantage of the situation, of this time. This is a gift. And start your healing process, and do not go back. Do not fall for the little messages here and there. Do not fall for the tricks. Cut off all forms of communication. It is so important because that's the only way you're going to move on. I've seen this happen so many times where someone has broken up with their ex and they still keep a form of communication with them and they end up getting back together. And it's like, okay, all that work that you did, all that time that you spent healing, for what? If that person was toxic to you, what makes you think that they changed in such a short amount of time? I mean, it's very rare, but most likely they didn't, especially if they didn't do any work on themselves. Cognitive dissonance makes you question yourself and blame yourself for what happened in the relationship. One minute you're researching about the type of abuse that you experience, and then the next minute you're blaming yourself for what happened. It's a tug of war that's going on in your mind about the reality that transpired, and your brain trying to make sense of it all. That's why it's so important to educate yourself. This is one of the ways you can eliminate cognitive dissonance. You only feel this way because you were brainwashed into thinking that you were the dysfunctional one in the relationship. And that is false. You've had lies about who you are and your part in the relationship being pounded into your head over and over and over again. This is what created cognitive dissonance. Being manipulated into thinking that it was all your fault, that all the problems in the relationship were caused by you, that you can't do anything right, and that any little thing that you say or do is going to cause World War III and the end of a relationship. That is not true. You don't deserve to be treated like that ever. And like I said before, you are not responsible for other people's behavior. It's not mentally or emotionally healthy for us to live in a situation where we're walking on eggshells to not upset another human being. Like, that's absurd. That's not a way to live. That's not a way to go about your life. You are constantly flushing adrenaline and cortisol through your body, and that will have a negative effect on your health. There's so many negative effects from living in a toxic, abusive relationship that people don't see it right away, but it's very gradual how it affects you. Like, you I see it sometimes on social media. You see a girl, she gets into a relationship and it ends up being toxic, and by the end of the relationship she doesn't even look like the same person she was when she started the relationship. Ways to overcome cognitive dissonance are: one, educate yourself. Start reading up on the type of abuse that you experience, and obviously do this when you are in a better state of mind, a better emotional and mental state, to be able to start reading about what you experience and feeling validated. That was a very pivotal point in my healing, was when it wasn't when I was reading how to be single books, because I thought that was my problem. I didn't realize the extent of the type of inner work that had to be done to get myself out of that part of the breakup. But it was when I read a book that validated everything that I had gone through. And I was like, wow. And it made me feel seen for the first time. Even though I was just reading a book, it made me feel seen, to realize that what I was going through, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't this horrible person that my ex made me out to be. I wasn't this toxic psychopath. It was kind of crazy because, like, the book I was reading was about psychopath, and it actually describes him to a T. I mean, talk about feeling validated. There were times where, like, I would express to him, hey, I'm not feeling that great mentally. Like, can we not argue like this? And, I really need your support. I just need you to hold me. Like, I really don't want to argue with you. And at that time, I was having suicidal thoughts when I was asking him to support me in those moments. And I'll never forget, he so many times would call me a psychopath because I would bring that up. And I would be like, whoa, why are you, like, that's the last thing you want to tell somebody that's suicidal and depressed. It's calling them crazy or calling them a psychopath. Like, it's just insane. And it's just ironic that the book I bought was described psychopath, and, like, I was like, oh, that's actually him. Start researching and start educating yourself on the type of abuse that you experience, because feeling validated is a huge pivotal point in your healing, to help you realize that what you're experiencing is not because you're crazy. It's not because it's all your fault. It's not because you're a horrible person. It's not because you're a toxic person. Yes, do we all have things that we get to work on? Do we all have baggage that we bring into relationships? Absolutely. I am not saying that all the women that have been in toxic, abusive relationships, that they haven't had things that they needed to work on. I'm not saying that. Everybody does. But to have the blame be completely put on one person, that is not fair. To blame somebody for your behavior, your toxicity, your abuse, that is just not right. That is not right at all. Like that is wrong on so many levels. We are not responsible for someone's past trauma. We're not responsible for someone's behavior. We are not responsible for the way somebody reacts. We are not. At the end of the day, that person is responsible for the way that they react, their behavior, and they are responsible for their own inner work. To place the blame of all those things onto somebody else that also has her own set of traumas and issues that they need to work on is not fair. It's not right. So I want to remind you that yes, educate yourself so that way you can find validation in knowing that it wasn't, it's not all your fault. That person's behavior is not your fault. It was not your problem to fix them. And the way you were living was not right. And you did not cause it. That's the main thing I want to reiterate. You did not cause that behavior. You did not, because they're going to act that way with the next person. Another way is going no contact. Like I said before, cutting off all communication with your ex, it's so important. It is actually vital to your healing, to your mental, emotional, and physical health. Another way to combat cognitive dissonance is to acknowledge and accept the discomfort. It is normal and part of the healing process, especially after a toxic, abusive relationship, to experience cognitive dissonance. It is so normal. It really is. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that your healing isn't going as planned. It doesn't mean that you are taking the wrong steps. You also get to reconnect with your core values. Remember your values, what you stand for, your beliefs, all the things that were trying to be literally washed away in that relationship. Go back to those core values. Go back to, you deserve to be treated with respect. You deserve to be treated with love and kindness and compassion. All those things. Whatever your soul was longing for in that relationship, go back to those core values. Some other things are practicing self-care. Seek support and validation from close friends and family. And lastly, allow yourself to grieve and heal. Ladies, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I want to remind you that you are so dearly loved. God loves and adores you and wants the best for you. He wants to see you shine. He wants to see you bloom. There is hope and light at the end of all this. There is. Right now, you might feel like you're going through a storm, but you are not alone. You are not alone. Whenever you're ready, if you want to take a look at my website, it is called sparkleandbloomcoaching.com. I hope you ladies have the most amazing day. I love you so much. I wish you the best, and I hope that today is a beautiful, blessed day full of healing and strength and resilience. May God bless you in so many ways. Sending you so much love, and I will see you next time. Bye.